So guys, in this tutorial, we are going to introduce the topic on inflation, which I believe is one of the easiest topics that you can come across in economics or in any subject for that matter. Because as long as you know how to write your name, I'm sure you'll be able to grasp the concepts that we'll be talking about. So we are going to cover this topic in 4 lessons. In this lesson, we are just going to talk about the introduction, what is inflation, and then define some of the terms that will come across when you are studying inflation. In the second lesson, we will look at the types and causes of inflation. In the third lesson, we will look at the effects of inflation and measures to control it. Then in the last lesson, we will look at the relationship between inflation and unemployment. So hopefully by the end of this topic, you'll be able to explain the impact of inflation on any economy. So in terms of the lesson objectives for this lesson, we are going to define inflation. We are going to explain why it is important to study inflation. Then we'll explain some of the common terms used in that you encounter when you are studying inflation. So by definition, guys, inflation is just the general increase in prices. So when the prices of goods and services are going up, we say that's inflation. And this can be translated as a decline in purchasing power of money. The word purchasing just means buying, and power is usually related to, or it can be seen as strength. So when you say that the purchasing power is declining, it means the number of goods and services that your money can buy is decreasing as the prices are going up. So as you can see the pictures on this slide, you can see that old Madala pushing a wheelbarrow of money to buy goods and services. Hyperinflation, or if the rate of inflation is very high, it can have that impact on money, where money starts to lose some of its features. I am sure you remember when we talked about money, we said some of the features of good money is that it has to be portable and it has to be acceptable. But because of inflation, money can cease to be portable. If you are having to, push a wheelbarrow to do a transaction, it means that money is no longer portable. And people start to, prefer other methods of payment, like, pay me in kind, because money is no longer acceptable because it's losing value at a fast rate. So why is it important to study inflation? Inflation, one of the major macroeconomic objectives. Remember, when we talked about macroeconomic objectives, we said all economies or all countries throughout the world, they've got 4 major macroeconomic objectives. One of it is to achieve price stability. They also seek to achieve economic growth, a favorable balance of payment position, and employment creation. So the objective of price stability is linked with inflation, because we said inflation is the general increase in prices. So if you want to have price stability, it means you need to know how to control inflation. And inflation also affects the other macroeconomic objectives. For instance, economic growth. For there to be growth, there has to be incentive for businesses who want to do business. Remember, we said the major objective of businesses is to maximize profits. So they need some bit of inflation to incentivize them to go into business. But inflation in this case is like salt. When you are preparing a meal, you have to put the right amount of salt. You just need a bit of salt. If you put too much, it might end up ruining the whole meal. So you just need a bit of inflation. If it's too much, it will also jeopardize everything, and you won't achieve that economic growth that you want. Then in terms of balance of payment position, because when the money is losing its value, it has got an impact on the value of the currency, which will then affect the flow of goods and services across borders in international trade. So that will affect your balance of payment position as a country. Then, of course, when there is no growth, maybe due to hyperinflation, as we will see later, there is no room for employment creation. So we need to understand the impact of inflation on purchasing power or on buying power of money. And we also need to understand how it affects economic planning. It can be very difficult to plan in an inflationary environment. Imagine you have a business, you want to plan what you are going to do next month, but you don't know what the prices are going to be like next month. So it can be very difficult. There's no certainty in an inflationary environment. So in terms of common terms that you come across, the first one is inflation rate, which is just the speed at which general prices are going up. So prices can be increasing at a slow rate or at a very fast rate, which you see when we talk about hyperinflation. Then in terms of calculating the inflation rate, when we talked about price indices, we said a price index is an average price of a basket of commodities. So you can calculate a price index in period one. Then you can also calculate the price index for that same basket of commodities in period two. Then to calculate the inflation rate, you have to calculate the percentage change in general price levels. So that is price index in period two minus price index in period one over the price index in period one times 100. So it's just simple mathematics. You are calculating percentage change in price indices for two periods. Then deflation, this is when the general prices are going down. So it's an opposite of inflation. It is very simple. Stagflation, this is a combination of two words, stagnation and inflation. So this is a situation where there is no economic growth. The economy is stagnant. The GDP is not growing. Then coupled with inflation and unemployment. So this is a nasty position to be as a country. Suppressed inflation, this is when the government, is controlling inflation. So maybe because of demand and supply, there is an upward pressure on prices. Prices wants to go up. There is an inflationary pressure in the economy, but the government won't allow, through price controls, won't allow those prices to go up. So we say that there is suppressed inflation. The government is, intervening with the market so that it controls inflation. Open inflation, on the other hand, this is when prices are just, allowed to go up. When, for instance, the aggregate demand is greater than aggregate supply, when the demand is greater than supply, there is an upward pressure on prices. So in that situation, when there is open inflation, prices will just go up. There are no authorities that are going to intervene in trying to bring down those prices. And when we are talking about underlying inflation, sometimes when calculating inflation, we might exclude prices or items that have got prices that are volatile. So volatility refers to, when prices are going up and down, there are many fluctuations. So we might remove products that have got high fluctuations because they create some sort of noise in the statistic that we are trying to calculate. So we might remove those items like food items in the energy. Then we come up with the underlying inflation, which shows us the general trend of inflation in an economy. So when we do not remove those, items with the high price volatility, we calculate what is called headline inflation. So this is when we are calculating the overall price increase of goods and services in an economy. And typically, this is calculated using the consumer price index. And from that lesson again that we had of price indices, I'm sure you know that we defined consumer price index as an average price for a basket of commodities that are mainly consumed by the citizens of a country. Inflationary spiral, this is a self-reinforcing cycle where prices are going up, which causes, workers to demand higher wages. And when wages go up, the firms will increase prices, to cover that cost, that increase in wages. Then when, prices go up, workers demand higher wages. So it's like prices are causing wages to go up, wages are causing prices to go up, and it continues in a spiral circle, in a spiral motion. Then reflation, this refers to policies by government to stimulate the economy. So it's a deliberate attempt by government to inflate, to cause inflation in an economy. So when we talked about business cycles, you know that when you are going through a recession, it means the GDP, there is no GDP growth, there is economic decline. So to come out of that recession, the government might have to cause a bit of inflation, or might have to stimulate the economy through causing a bit of inflation so that they incentivize firms to produce. So here you see two pictures on the left of the screen. It's a spiral. So that is how a spiral looks like. It's like a continuous line that is going up. So in this case, we use it to describe spiral inflation, where prices are going up, which are causes wages to go up. Then the wages are causing prices to go up, and it continues like that. Then to the right of the screen, you can see the business cycle. On the y-axis, we have our GDP, and then on the x-axis, we've got time. So over time, the GDP goes up and down in I'm sure you remember what we talked about, how we described all the periods in a business cycle. So when when there is the GDP is going down, when we are experiencing a recession, and remember that a prolonged recession is the one which we call a depression. To come up out of that situation, that is where reflation becomes important, so that we can start to recover, as you can see on the diagram. So in conclusion, we have defined inflation as the general increase in price, which can be translated as a decline in purchasing power of money. We've talked about the importance of studying inflation. We said it can, it has an impact on the macroeconomic objectives of price stability, economic growth, employment creation, and a favorable balance of payment position. We talked about inflation rate, which we said is the speed at which inflation or prices are going up. We talked about deflation is the opposite of inflation, which is when prices are general prices are going down. Stagflation, we said this is when there is high unemployment and high inflation in an environment that does not have economic growth, that is stagnating. Suppressed inflation, we said this is when the government is putting a downward pressure on price. It's pressing down the prices. Open inflation, this is when prices are just allowed to go up if, because of forces of demand and supply. Underlying inflation, we said this is when we are calculating inflation, but excluding items which are highly volatile, with prices that are highly volatile, which fluctuate a lot. Then headline inflation is when we are calculating the general price increase in all goods and services that are mainly consumed in a country, which is mainly done through calculating the consumer price index. Then inflationary spiral, we said this is a situation where prices are causing wages to go up, and then wages are causing prices to go up, and it goes on and on and on like that. Then reflation, we said this refers to deliberate policies that are implemented by the government to inflate the economy, to cause prices to go up, so that it can incentivize firms to invest. So what's next? We are going to look at the types and causes of inflation in the next lesson. So stay tuned.